rank all of the candidates in preference order from most preferential to least, and it creates an instant runoff vote system. Through our research, that it could be challenging to issue a ranked choice vote with a smaller voting pool of 4 people. There's still a pretty high risk of a tie vote, and so staff proposed a modified ranked choice voting, commonly referred to as order of merit voting. In this method, there are assigned points for your rank of preference. So your first choice preference would receive 3 points, your second choice would receive 2 points, and your third choice would receive 1 point. And then the person with the most points is presented for consideration. Ultimately, the decision to appoint a city council member to fill this vacancy requires a motion and a majority vote of the council. And so tonight we would still need a motion or at least 3 votes in favor to appoint somebody to the seat. So tonight I'm going to turn it over to our city manager, who's going to talk about the recommended action.
So I think the first step for the council to take tonight after public comment will be determine if the modified ranked choice voting system that Julia just went through is what we want to use, or if you'd like to use some alternative mechanism. Staff is prepared to assist in that process. We do have tables we can display on the screen. Alternatively, the council can debate and do it without our assistance, whatever your preference is. So just let us know. We're here to help. And as the city clerk indicated, at the end of the night, our goal here is to get a motion, a second, and at least 3 affirmative votes for a replacement council member. So with that, staff is available for questions.
Great. We can start with council comments on this side.
No comments at this time.
None.
My quick question will be so that means we are going to do a modified rank choice. We're going to start from line to line and then do the tallies.
You know, it's really up to the council, I think, how best to proceed. I think, one option could be that the council members just say their first choice without any other process involved, and you see if you have a consensus. If you don't, then potentially you could direct staff to pull up sort of the table that we've developed and start assigning points and maybe go through and assign your second choice and then your third choice if necessary. At the end of the day, I guess I should emphasize this is a tool. And it's not a perfect tool. It's possible at the end of the day that you may choose something different than the results, or we could have a tie conceivably. So I just want everyone to be aware this is simply a tool, and at the end of the day, the motion needs to be passed.
Yeah, I do have a follow-up. So a hypothetical situation, we get through round 2 and we have a tie. A proposed solution to that, would that be to invite the 2 people that are tied forward, have them come forward to give a speech, or how are we going to break a tie? And I think we should probably talk about that before we get to a tie.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, this is up to the council. You do have 3 potential rounds under the proposed system, so you could go through all 3. Alternatively, you could cut it off after 2 rounds. But I think in brainstorming options for the council, if there is a tie, and as well as looking at what other jurisdictions have done, I think one option is further council debate. You can try to convince each other to bring around a coalition that could vote for one member. I think another option, as Councilmember Jensen, you suggested, would be to invite the top 2 candidates up to potentially say something, talk about their vision for Capitola. And at the end of the day, there are systems that have been used in jurisdictions to resolve ties, such as drawing straws, flipping coins, things like that. Our hope, obviously, is that we are able to get ourselves to a process where the council doesn't have to resort to that.
I would just advocate if there was a tie at the end of the second round and there is no potential way going on, I don't think we need to keep going down through the third choice. If there's a tie and the points are high enough, if the next votes are all at number 1 and there wasn't any more, it would be really stopped at that point, wouldn't it?
Perhaps what we can do is just write down all 3. So we have our 3, and then we can determine point-wise whether there's a clear winner.
I think if we did go line to line and go up to 3, I think would do us the best. Any thoughts?
I would agree with that.
So The idea, if there's a tie, we're going to talk about how that'll be handled now, or we want to wait until there's a tie?
A recommendation, I think, would be to go through the process. In sort of going through scenarios, it seemed unlikely that there would be a tie, but there's certainly a statistical chance.
Thank you.
I think at this time we'll wait to see if it comes to that tie, and then we can have further discussion. Is everybody in agreement? Yes. Seeing that agreement, we can take it to public comment. And before we do public comment, can I get a hand of everybody that would like to talk tonight? Yeah, we have well over 10, and so we're going to cut the 3-minute comment to 1 minute. And now, we will have a chance again later on to talk in public comment once again on all items that aren't on the agenda. So just remember that too. Later on in the meeting, we'll have that opportunity. So with that in mind, you guys can come on up, write your name down if you wish, and you'll have 1 minute to speak.
Hi, my name is Leslie Nielsen. Good evening, council and staff.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for the added time spent on using a community-involved democratic process for this agenda item tonight. It does matter. I really wanted to thank you for revisiting that. I remember not too many years ago when it was challenging to encourage people to run for city council. It's so great to see the interest and backgrounds of so many people willing to step up to the plate to fill this unexpected vacancy, and hope to see this continued interest in future election cycles. Some candidates disclosed in their applications that they had no intent to run for council in 2026, and I encourage you to inquire regarding that intent of all candidates. The best candidate now is the one who is qualified to hit the ground running tonight with nothing but the community's best interest in mind, so that the important work they, along with you, will be doing in the next 23 months can get underway quickly. Your job tonight is to appoint the most qualified candidate. Not the one you like best, not the one you think will vote the same on you as any particular issue. So do the right thing and try to get this done in round one. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Goran Klapic.
That was a quick minute.
Hi, my name is Goran Klapic. I'm an army vet. I served overseas in the Schweizer Armee. What I observed in the past, and sometimes still observe when I play basketball at J Street Park, is there is illegal alcohol consumption in the park.
Can I interrupt you just for a second? We are going to have public comment on those items. This one is specifically for the council vacancy.
I will step down then.
Thank you, Goran. You'll get your chance to come back up. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. How you doing? My name is Enrique Domo Jr. I'm here tonight with everybody else who loves Capitola. I work in New Brighton Middle School. It's been a busy week. I'll tell you that. Chief knows about it a little bit. We had our third quarter sports starting last week. 7 sports: wrestling, flag football, 3 volleyball teams, including 1 girls flag football team. I encourage all of you to come to one of our games. We start volleyball at the 10th at New Brighton. Our first flag football game of the season is this Friday, or next Friday, 3:45. I'll let any one of you do the towing costs if you want to do that. I'm also here to let you know that I am still interested in running for our beautiful city council. What I can bring to this community is something, an advocate for our youth in the community. I've been working at New Brighton for 10 years. I have a former student here. Do we have any alumni parents from New Brighton? There we go. Thank you all. I hope to see you all at our games. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Rachel Newman. I'm here to express my intent and interest to run for the city council position. I had a little 3-minute speech prepared, but I'm going to keep it short and concise. But I've been a resident on and off in Capitola for the past 25 years. I lived in Depot Hill. I lived off Sir Francis Avenue. I didn't run for the election period because I was living in Pleasure Point at the time, and I'd always wanted to run for city council. I attended Santa Cruz City Council meetings, and as a resident of Pleasure Point, it's unincorporated. So I've been very actively involved, wanting to get involved in city council, and I didn't run for city council at the time of election because I hadn't moved into Capitola yet. But right after the election, right before the elections, I became a city resident, and I saw Jerry come by my door, and I really looked into the opportunity, and I had missed the deadline to apply. I've had a lot of really great experiences up at UC Santa Cruz. I've served on the Chancellor's Strategic Academic Plan. I've served on the Executive Vice Chancellor's Strategic Academic Planning, and then, thank you. Keep it short.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for opening this up to an application process. My name's Tori. Susan Westman's my mom. I've spent a lot of time in these chambers. My mom sat over there, and I would ask my mom, why are you so monotone? Why don't you let people know that you're fun? And she would say, it's not about me, honey. It's about the business of the city and the citizens that live here. In the land of zingers on next door, that's not Susan. She says things like, have you talked to your neighbor about it? Have you looked that up? Let me show you where to find that information. My mom's on the sidelines at local events. She knows kids' schools. There are hard times ahead. Fiscal challenges, the mall, housing. I promise you that this is the woman you want in the room. Mom, we're so incredibly proud of you. Pick experience over allegiances and over agendas. I can't tell you as a family member, this is a moment for my family. My mom stepping up for the city of Capitola, and I just want to thank her.
Thank you. If I could ask everybody to hold their applauses, we want to make everybody feel comfortable here and not ostracize anybody. So just please, you can, but keep the applauses down. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, City Council. That was my mother back there, so obviously Susan's my grandmother. And I just want to say, like, the relationships I've built through people in the business communities or in the village have been always positive. And you know, when they find out Susan is my grandmother, they go and tell me, they go, oh, well, you're so lucky. Oh, my goodness. Let me tell you about Susan. Susan is a lovely lady. She's done this, she's done that, and same with my grandfather, too. You know, the duo is a very iconic one, Susan and Nels Westman. And Susan being in the vacant city spot will benefit you guys drastically. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I guess I'm got a family affair going here. I wanted to express my sincere gratitude to all of you for going through this process. I recognize this decision is not an easy one for you, and I deeply appreciate that you've been willing to take the time and the effort to make this happen. I also need to give my heartfelt thanks to all the people who have supported me. I can't express how much it's meant to me. I think that Capitola is a great town. The one thing I did do in this little effort is I talked to a lot of people, people for me, people who I didn't think would probably support me. And the one thing was reiterated to me, if we sit down and talk with each other, I think we have a lot more in common than we think we have. So, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Megan Morrissey. I'm not related to Susan Westman, but I'm a resident and registered voter here in Capitola. I want to talk about the democratic process because I believe we saw that work in November when the voters of Capitola spoke loud and clear about who they did not want on the city council. I'm going to start with Margot Morgan, who was an incumbent on the council and should have easily been reelected if she had done the job voters expected from her. Ms. Morgan was an incumbent who received less than 1 in 5 votes. She lost by a supermajority. She received 800 less votes in 2024 than she did in 2020. The residents of Capitola voted her off the council, and now you are considering reinstating her. This makes no sense to me. Clear and simple, if she had done the job voters wanted, she would have been reelected. She was an incumbent. Okay, that's my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor, City Council members. I urge you to listen to the citizens and the leaders of Capitola. The packet for tonight was 376 pages. 100 of those were dedicated to recommendations, letters of recommendation for the candidates. I read through all of them. 2 of them were for Mr. Dolmo. 5 of them were for Dennis Norton before he withdrew. 19 of them were for Ms. Margot. I noticed in those 19, 5 or 6 of them were verbatim. Don't waste time on an open process. Don't waste time on a special election. 38 of those letters of recommendation were for Susan Westman. I don't know Susan. I've never met her before, but I read every one of those letters, and they were amazing. They said things like, she is a gift to the city of Capitola. She is wonderful. Her experience is amazing. I would urge you to listen to the citizens and do the right thing and vote for Susan Westman. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to see you guys again. Again, I want to thank you, first of all, for your, I think, courageous decision to open this process up a few weeks ago. I think what you're seeing tonight is a robust response from the community about the process and about who we think should be joining you in that open chair. From my point of view, as we talked about previously, experience, expertise, leadership skills, depth are all really important. This isn't a popularity contest. Everybody's a great person here. We accept that. We need strong leadership. And to be quite frank, I think all of you need mentorship in terms of how to help run the city. So Susan Westman has all those characteristics and traits. We're a big supporter of her, and I hope you guys make the right decision tonight and add her to that open chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Heidi Kellison. I'm a resident of Capitola. I'm here tonight to talk about the process, not any particular individual. I want to appreciate your comments from previous meetings where you discussed the importance of democracy, and I wanted to remind you that tonight you have an important duty to the 2026 election in making sure that that is a democratic process and it remains an even playing field. So the concern I have is that you have 2 options. One would be to select a candidate who can hit the ground running and who has committed to only serving the remainder of the term. And the other is to choose a candidate who has been silent about their intentions for 2026. And in that way, you would potentially shape the next election before the public has even had a say. So I think it's fair that since the question has not been asked of the candidates, that at the close of public comment, you do take that opportunity and ask what their intentions are if they happen to know them, because you deserve that answer, as does the public. The question remains, will this be a good faith appointment, or will the election stage be set tonight by you?
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, for those who don't know me, I'm Linda Smith, a long-term resident and volunteer in Capitola, and I had 3 minutes. I'm going to try and pick the highlights.
Linda, you missed it earlier. It's 1 minute for every person talking.
Yeah, I know, but I'm going to take my 3 minutes and shorten it to 1 minute, but you just took 30 seconds. So,
sorry about that.
You guys are here tonight to do something that's very rare in our town. You've lost your 2 most senior members, and you are going to pick what could be the deciding vote and the leadership for the next 2 years. You're listening to these people, and I'm here tonight because I'm hoping that your minds are not already made up. What it's going to boil down to tonight is, who do you think will collaborate with you? You've got ample, really good applicants here. Margot served Capitola well in the last 4 years. With no experience, she stepped up, and until that time, she didn't know politics, she didn't know how the city works, she didn't know anything. She has been thoughtful in her decisions, she's shown balanced leadership, and she was a true steward. She suited up and ran for re-election. She put herself out there in front of the Capitola residents for scrutiny. And I think it's highly probable that if the November election had not been manipulated by the vote for one push that we all saw, she would have gotten more votes. And I don't see it as a rejection of Margot. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Keith Galen. I've been a resident 35 years. One thing that's not been brought up by anybody is kind of your criteria. And I think my opinion should be, number one, your criteria should be anybody that has either served on the city council and or on one of the city commissions for multiple years. That it increases their exposure, their knowledge, their understanding of the city and what's going on. Number two, which I think is a grave misgiving, and I can't believe that nobody has talked about, is if someone has not helped with the community, and by doing that I mean beyond the Begonia Festival, beyond the Art and Wine Commission, beyond the Beach Festival, beyond the things like the Sip and Strolls, the Capitola Foundation. If you haven't done that, you do not know Capitola. You may think you do, but I can tell you they don't. So that should be your number two criteria: knowledge and understanding of this city from within the city, and then number two, an understanding of the people of the city and what they try and accomplish here. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Mayor, members of the City Council, thank you. First, I want to thank you all for considering last week to have this discussion and open it up and not just make the appointment. I think that was really brave of you all to have the discussion you had and allow the public to give you input. Second of all, everybody on this list of the people that applied, at least 6 of them are personal friends of mine. And they could probably all do the job in their capacity, but this isn't about picking a friend. This is about picking someone to serve on this council. And with the lack of experience that's up here, it's important that you get someone that can help you. And that person is Susan Westman. She can bring assets to you that will help you and guide you, which is what you need at this time. On this total council, we have 4 years of experience, and it's never been like that. So it's unfortunate the mayor stepped down and left you in that hole. But I think Susan is someone who is not looking to run for re-election. She totally is sincere about her care of Capitola and will be an asset to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, City Council. You are our governing body for Capitola. So I really respect the fact that you've put this out here. I like the process. I like how you've approached how you're going to vote. I think this is all good. One person I met originally when I came to Capitola 30-some years ago was Susan Westman. And it came up because I was trying to do some organizing in Capitola. Keith here, he's one of the people I was actually organizing with. And I organized a bunch of other things at Capitola. Time and time and time, again, Susan was someone who gave me advice. The remarkable thing to me about her is she's always been in the background. She's on various committees. She stepped in when we needed various people who had left. She stepped in to help the city of Capitola, and I respect that. Now she's doing it again. Please vote for Susan. Thanks.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I want to talk about process. Cutting from 3 minutes to 1 minute, I think is too short. You could have at least done 2 minutes. Telling people not to clap, to me, is like infringing on freedom of speech. People can express themselves. It doesn't take up any more time. It's like an autocratic decision on the part of the mayor to squelch feelings. That's my sense of it. Also, I would like to see the candidates up here so we can see, and for TV purposes, who is who. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, Vice Mayor and council members. My name is Margo Morgan. I am not envious of your position this evening. I understand you guys really put it out there for the community, and I'm really glad that you did. I want to say thank you to the community for those of you that did step up and put in applications. This is no easy feat. However, I am the most recent person to run through an election, and granted, I did not win, but I think it does show that I am still here to do the job and support this city in the way that I know how, which it may not be through management or certain things, although I have done that my entire working career. But I just think that, I'm not rerunning in 2026. Let everybody hear that. And I would love to serve with you all. I want to continue my hard work that I've put into this beautiful city that we all love so much. And anybody you pick, I know is going to help you out. Good luck, you guys. And I really appreciate the work.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. My name is Luna Mar Harder, and I submitted an application to take the vacant seat for City Council. I think there's a lot of wonderful candidates that submit applications, and I'm really grateful that you opened up the application process. I think it gives folks who weren't resourced to run a campaign an opportunity to really impact our government. That being said, I do strongly believe about representation in our government. 30% of the city of Capitola identifies as Latino or Hispanic, and I also identify as Latino or Hispanic. And I think it's really critical that we have somebody on our city council who represents the community. And I just wanted to express my interest in supporting our community, and especially the Latino community. Somos aquí y es nuestro tiempo para mantener nuestro gobierno.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers? Seeing none, I'll bring us back to council deliberation. We'd like to start on this side.
So just to be clear on the process here, is this right now we are going to suggest our first pick, or is this more of a general discussion preceding that?
I think at this point we can do the discussion and then we can get to the next. So if we have any discussion about any of the candidates you'd like to share or.
Okay, well, so I'll take this opportunity to share some of my thoughts around this issue. First of all, I'd just like to show my appreciation for all of our community members who came out tonight and have been involved in this process. Those of you who have taken it upon yourself to step up and offer to run for city council for these next 2 years. There's a lot of really great candidates. There's nobody who has stepped up that I believe wouldn't do a good job here and serve our city to the best of their ability. I'll just reiterate the same thoughts that I expressed at our last city council meeting, is that less than 2 months ago, we had an election. The candidates who were interested in serving our community in this capacity went through a long process to disclose their political ideologies, their passions, what they wanted to accomplish. And the people had an opportunity to vote. Margot Morgan, who did not win this election, had over 1,500 registered voters supporting her. And although I appreciate everybody coming out and expressing their thoughts and opinions, I don't believe that the limited number of comments and emails outweighs those over 1,500 individuals' right to vote for who they want to represent them on the city council. Thank you.
So first, I just want to reiterate, thank you to the council. I think it's great that we had this process. Later on, I'll make comments about attending a League of Cities training, and I attended with Councilmember Orbach, and we had some interactions with other cities, and it was pretty eye-opening to find out that this is quite a common thing in other cities. And one of the things I saw, Melinda's eyes open up, and we were like, oh, great, now we can start talking to people about what other cities are doing. And I don't think we talked to anybody that didn't have an open application process. So it was nice to see the decision that was made by this council was something that's in line with what we see around our region and everything like that. With that, I want to just clarify some of the things that I looked at from the standpoint of this. I think we were blessed to have 10 people step forward. One thing I like to highlight when we're out talking to other cities, Monte Sereno was, which is just over the hill by Los Gatos, they had, I think it was 2 appointments, and that's because they had nobody running. Okay, and so, I think we're so lucky here in Capitola, we have 10 people wanting to come up here and donate their time and be like a role model in our community. So I appreciate the outreach. So with that, when we look at an open process, like one of the other, I think it was Mr. Bachtorf said, everybody here that has running has really taken an opportunity to step forward, maybe only for a shorter period of time than what a real election is, but to step forward and kind of expose yourself. And there are a couple of candidates that are my personal friends. And so it makes it very hard. But so one thing I looked at from a criteria standpoint is experience and what would leadership be and what would help drive our city for the next 21 months or 22 months, whatever it is. So that was some of my criteria. I made sure I read every single application. I did research. I looked up what everybody was, and I really knew that the responsibility relies on myself. When I ran, I thought, I'm going to be making decisions that I think is best for the community. And now with this dropping on all of our councils out, is that we're going to be really making a decision of putting another person that's going to represent you. And I think that's so very important. And it's a lot of weight, I think, on all of our shoulders. And so the basic I was using was experience and leadership, and those were the criteria that I used myself. And I just want to make sure that was very clear as we start to deliberate. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to thank all the candidates for applying and for your steadfast commitment to this community and for your desire to run. There were so many great candidates who applied, and I'm really impressed and grateful to you all. I hope to see some of you, if not all of you, apply and run for the next election cycle. During my campaign, I stressed the importance of diverse lived experiences being represented in the city's leadership. I'm proud to be the first Asian American city councilwoman for Capitola. In analyzing the choice before us tonight, I want to put that belief into practice by making sure that the person we choose expands representation to as many of our residents as possible. However, leadership is more than just about representation. Experience and continuity matter as well. With 2 brand new council members, me and Jerry, already joining the council, a short 2-year window in which to serve, the person being appointed will be most effective if they already have experience on the council, so we can jump right in and get to work. It's also important for me to choose someone whose policy positions are well aligned with who we're replacing, which is Councilmember Brooks. With these criteria in mind, I believe Margot Morgan is the strongest choice to serve the remaining 2 years of Councilmember Brooks' term. She has already expressed that she is not planning to run again in 2026. Margot has had 4 years of very recent council experience, having served through a very difficult period through Capitola's history. She's worked closely with Councilmember Brooks and the other city council members on many ongoing projects that we can hopefully see through to completion. She's up to date on the budget and staffing and is informed about upcoming projects that will begin in the next 2 years. This continuity will honor the voters who elected Councilmember Brooks to represent their values and priorities in 2022. Mrs. Morgan will also provide representation to the residents in mobile home parks, who is historically a group that has been underrepresented. On the campaign trail, I met many of these residents from our mobile homes, and I heard over and over again about the need to work with them to help provide protection against rent increases that could force them out of our community. I am committed to doing this work, and I believe that Margot will be a strong ally in this fight. She is also a young woman in the workforce, and I believe in
in the need for and power of female leadership in our local communities. We are, after all, 50% of the Capitola's population. And in the 75 years of Capitola history, we've only elected 10 women. I am the 10th. Furthermore, I cannot ignore the 1,600 residents who voted for her in this past election. This means she has broad support from many members of the community, having gone through a very democratic process. These are residents who may not be able to come to the meeting tonight because of family obligations, special needs, or having to work multiple jobs in order to live in the city. We as a community had a chance to hear from all of the candidates during our months-long campaign. I think we need to uphold the values of our democracy and respect the vote of all of those individuals. In my almost 2 months on council, I have already accepted the fact that not everyone will be happy with the decisions we make. We are not here to appease everyone. We are here to ensure we do what's best for the majority of the residents, whether they show up to meetings or not. Frankly, I find it patronizing that we are being told we are young and inexperienced when we have been elected by the people of the city to serve and make difficult decisions.
Yeah, I'd like to say that there's probably more than 1, 2, maybe 3 that could fill the position. We're at crossroads, but I want to take the moment to thank each and every one who applied for this vacant city council seat. It speaks volumes for how great our community truly, truly is. I read all the resumes. I read all the letters. We have a difficult task. I think most of the applicants, the 8 that are left, would probably do a great job. But we have to come down to 1. And so here we are. We're going to be choosing the 1 person. I think we've worked out a good way to get this done in the best way we see fit. So if nobody has anything else more, we'll be moving on to the decision. Anything from staff? Nope. I would like to start it over at this end on your pick.
All right, thank you. I used the beginning part to talk about the process of what I use. So before I say who I am putting in, I think it's important to then highlight the reason why I'm picking this person. When I talk about experiences, I think it's vital to have somebody that has experiences at all different levels, from being a city manager to being on a planning commission to working in multiple different jurisdictions and being a person who cares and has a love for Capitola and has volunteered to step forward. So with that being said, my vote is for Susan Westman.
Thank you.
My vote is for Margot Morgan.
Thank you.
My vote is also for Margot Morgan.
Okay, my vote is for Margot Morgan.
I move to appoint Margot Morgan to finish the term for this vacancy.
I'll second that.
Can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Jensen.
Aye.
Councilmember Orbach.
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson.
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Clark.
Aye. That brings us to item 4B. And of course, the motion was passed. Thank you.
The motion passes unanimously. For item 4B, there is no staff presentation, but we do ask to take public comment before we go ahead and swear Ms. Morgan into office.
It sounds like we need to take a recess. We'll take a 3-minute recess.
Hi, my name is Goran Klopic. I'm an Army vet. I served overseas. I'm also American. My main concern about is Jade Street sometimes is when I played a ball there, and I played also with kids' balls, basketball there, because they were bored and didn't have anything else to do. there's alcohol consumption, and sometimes you also smell marijuana there. I think there is even a sign there that says smoking is prohibited. I want to compliment the city that they put a non-smoking sign right by the Capitola Library outside there. There's a big sign that says no smoking. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Christine McBroom. Good evening, Council. I wanted to share a situation that occurred to me on the way to work one morning just outside the village around 8 a.m. I was making a right-hand turn and a teenager on an e-bike came down the wrong side of the road and hit the back of my car. I stopped to see that the teenager was okay. They had no helmet. My heart was stopped as I thought I seriously injured this teenager. I called 911. The highway patrol and the fire department showed up. They did a screening on him. Thank goodness he was okay. The police took a report, but I was shocked when no one cited him for not having a helmet and going the incorrect direction on the road. The teenager argued his point that he was doing what was right, being in the bike lane, but had no idea there was a correct direction to go. I'm very happy to hear that kids are being cited in Capitola for not wearing helmets, and I honestly believe that is helping. My worry is kids on these bikes don't even know the appropriate direction to go down the road, let alone how to merge into traffic with hand signals, et cetera, et cetera. Kids are getting injured, and if I would have seriously injured this teenager, I would have not known what to do with myself. So I'm asking for the council's help. If you attend one of your committees, please, and if you learn about a grant to support teaching these kids bike safety on these e-bikes, please, let's do this. Maybe we could create a program where we teach kids a class and then they get a gift certificate for maybe a helmet or something. I don't know, it's just a thought. I know it's the parents' responsibility to teach their children the rules of the road, and I've made it a point to teach mine. But what about those working parents that maybe didn't grow up riding bikes? This teenager's parents arrived at the scene and were obviously very hardworking folks without the time to teach their teenager the rules of the road. So what do we do to help those families and support drivers that ultimately, if a collision occurs between a bike and a vehicle, the vehicle is going to be responsible? This brings me to another point. I drive through the village every morning on my way to and from work. During the summer, I'm generally on my bike. Even with the Stockton Bridge being wider, there's no space for a car with our out-of-town guests viewing pedestrians' bikes at this capacity. And if we run a trail through the city, there's no safe way that this could occur. Thank you, Capitola PD, for monitoring and helping to keep our kids safe out there on their e-bikes. And please, Council, keep your eyes and ears open for ways to motivate our teenagers on their e-bikes to learn the rules of the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Clarifying with Madam Clerk, we were looking for comments on items 4, B, and C. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes. And so the regular oral communication by the public will be after we get through these two items. So these items, again, so nobody's confused, is on item 4B and 4C.
Thank you for the clarification. I was confused by your agenda. I'm here for item 4C. Council, I'm here tonight representing concerned citizens of Capitola. My name is TJ Welch. Earlier tonight, we served Councilmember Peterson with a notice of intent to recall. Subsequently, we also gave the papers to the city clerk as required by the Secretary of State. These actions are not taken lightly. However, it's time for some accountability of our council members. Councilmember Peterson's recall is based on 4 ethical violations. Use of false address. Councilmember Peterson used a false address for business while residing in Aptos. Number 2, misuse of public funds. Councilmember Peterson received a community grant and has yet to meet the requirements of the contract. Item 3, FPPC investigation. Councilmember Peterson is currently under investigation by the Fair Political Practice Commission for conflict of interest. Item 4, violation oath of office to uphold city law. Councilmember Peterson has intentionally violated City Municipal Code 8.72, which unfortunately our city seems to support him in this, not supporting the members of residents of Capitola who put that in the code. Each of these issues individually are a concern. Combined, they are unacceptable. Tonight, we're asking you to remove Councilmember Peterson from the RTC board and replace him with a council member that will uphold our city laws. In addition, I have to paraphrase because I had to skip with the earlier changes. Given the ethical charges, we ask that he also not be considered for vice mayor. Finally, you have a lot to consider tonight. We've already seen some of that. Regardless how you got elected, you are here to represent our community, not a political organization. And quite frankly, Councilmember Orbach, I'm going to go off here because it's not gender or race. And I find that a little bit offensive because what you're really saying is those of us that don't meet that, gender or race, female, Asian, can't make fair decisions for all the city of Capitola. We need people that's going to care about the city of Capitola, not gender, not race, or not a political affiliation. Thank you.
Again, folks, please, I would like to keep our comments, including the clapping, down so that it's not just for who you want to vote for or who you want to hear. It's for everybody that's in the city hall. Thank you. Any other speakers? Seeing none, it's now time to invite up our newly appointed.
Can I have a second to respond?
Is that appropriate?
You will have the opportunity later on the agenda during council comments to respond. Alternatively, it's up to the mayor to determine the order of the agenda.
I was looking more towards our legal advice. Is it appropriate to respond at this time?
I would echo the city manager's comments on this, but if the vice mayor does choose to recognize Councilman Peterson, this would be an appropriate time.
Great. Councilman Peterson, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd just like to take a second to respond to the accusations made just now by TJ Welch, supposedly on behalf of a group called Concerned Citizens of Capitola. And I'll say frankly that these accusations are false. And I will talk about the details of each one of those, which do have some nuance. I'll start with the issue brought up regarding Blue Circle, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that I founded, which was awarded the Capitola Community Grant prior to my being elected on City Council. Given that I had no part in the vote of this award, I don't believe that there is any ethical concern with a nonprofit that I run along with others having been awarded it. Having said that, Blue Circle is a nonprofit that advocates for living wages here locally and throughout the county. The Santa Cruz County is one of the most expensive places to live in the nation and has one of the biggest cost of living issues that affects nearly all of our residents. So I do truly believe this is a worthwhile cause, and I'm proud to have dedicated my own time and funds to try to make a difference in this area. Since that time that Blue Circle was awarded the community grant, well, I guess I'll say a little bit about how Blue Circle works. Blue Circle, similar to Fair Trade, offers certification for businesses who pay a living wage locally, a living wage as determined by the MIT Living Wage Calculator. As it turns out that in Santa Cruz County and specifically in Capitola, there are not many businesses that pay all of their employees a living wage. So despite what I think is a genuine effort to raise awareness and to increase the number of businesses that pay a living wage, we did not have a lot of traction in Capitola. And because of that, Blue Circle had decided to not accept any but the first community grant disbursement of $5,000. Since that time, despite having spent money on our efforts in Capitola, Blue Circle has returned the full $5,000 to the city of Capitola. So I don't believe that there was a conflict of interest to begin with. And since then, any possible conflict of interest has been remedied, as Blue Circle has not received or has returned 100% of the funds that were dedicated to the organization. So to say that there is some kind of ethical dilemma, I think, is a false statement. And I believe that this and the other supposed issues brought up by TJ Welch and the Concerned Citizens group are really more in regards to the political affiliations of Greenway, which were brought up later. Another accusation was that I am under investigation of the FPPC. I'm under this investigation because TJ Welch filed a complaint regarding Blue Circle, which, as I think it should be apparent to anybody, Blue Circle and myself does not have any ethical violations, although the FPPC is required by law to investigate any complaints submitted to it, which I think is a good thing. But being investigated in regards to what is essentially a false claim by the FPPC does not in any way indicate a finding of wrongdoing. So I just want to address that second point. A third point that was brought up was the supposed use of a false address. When I was running for city council and prior to that, I had a handyman business, which is not anymore in operation and hasn't been for approximately 2 years. This business was somehow listed on a site that I had no familiarity with, hosted by Good Times Santa Cruz, called santacruz.com, which somehow, I don't know how, accumulates local businesses and lists them on the website. This issue, so on my personal website, which I have control over, I didn't put any other address than the one that I was operating from. On my Google My Business profile, which is my official listing, I put my actual address, which was not in Capitola, it was in Aptos at the time. And at the time, this was brought to my attention during my campaign 2 years ago. And I reached out to the website, asked them to change the false information, which in no way would have benefited me or my business of having been in Capitola versus Aptos. It was not a brick and mortar organization. And I assumed that the issue had been dealt with by the website. I didn't follow up. That was a mistake of mine, only to find out 2 years later that TJ Welch is bringing this into attention of the community as some kind of ethical violation. So since that time, I have reached out to Good Times and worked with the residents of the address in question. And Good Times let me know that they didn't say how the website was populated in the first place, but they said that the website hadn't been active in years, which is probably why they didn't respond to my first request to remove it. And after a few phone calls going back and forth, they were able to remove the incorrect address from their website. So that issue is also likewise completely solved. And I don't believe it was, it wasn't something that I did. And I honestly don't see why it was a big deal in the first place. There are other issues. Stated violation of Capitola Municipal Code 8.72, which was Measure L. we are still, well, that's a very complicated issue that our city and our city council is dealing with the legality and meaning of that. And I will say that it's not my belief or the belief of our city attorneys that I have violated Measure L or Municipal Code 8.72 in any way. So I hope this goes to clearly state that all of the accusations are false. And I would like to say again that I believe that they stem from a political difference relating to the Greenway movement. So thank you.
Thank you. It still leaves us with, apparently we're not going to do the oath of office, but we are going to invite up Councilmember Morgan Marg. We are doing the oath.
We do need to do an oath of office, Vice Mayor.
Excellent.
And if Ms. Morgan would come up to the stage, we can go ahead and get that done.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it on? Okay. I, Margot Morgan, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of which I am about to enter. Thank you.
Thank you. Please join us. That brings us to item 4C. Madam Clerk, I believe we've already conducted our public comment. Do we have any council comments?
Make a motion?
Sure.
I move to appoint Joe Clark as our mayor.
I'll second.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Jensen.
Aye.
Councilmember Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Orbach.
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson.
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Clark.
Aye.
I'd also like to make a motion to appoint Councilmember Peterson as vice mayor.
I can second that.
Councilmember Jensen.
No.
Councilmember Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Orbach.
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson.
Aye.
And Mayor Clark.
No.
So the motion carries 3-2.
Item 5, oral communications with members of the public.
Test, test. Oh, my name's Keith Halen. Just two comments. I was listening to the woman with the problem with the e-bikes, and I would like to make a suggestion that besides a training program, that perhaps the city council consider a licensing for anyone operating an e-bike within the city of Capitola. I think everyone sitting on the council knows, as well as a lot of the members that's behind me, that e-bikes are becoming a problem. And, you know, when you've got a vehicle that's actually going 30, 35 miles per hour or capable of it without any type of licensing, any type of training, I think that's something that the city should address and help with the public safety. The second thing I'd like to address is I'd like to make a request for the council to put on your future agenda sometime in the next few months that you change the requirement for being on the city council and add an additional requirement, which is a 5-year residency within the city before you can run for city council. I'd like the council to address this expeditiously and then come to a resolution. So if they decide not to do that, we can let the public decide in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Never again ban industrial lithium-ion battery facilities in Santa Cruz and Monterey. I'm sure people have been following the disaster of the Monterey Moss Landing fire that spewed toxic chemicals all over. Just think how outrageous it is that we are forced to be poisoned by these operations. There's a Tuesday meeting, February 11th, about this, and I'd like to invite you to at Loudon Nelson Center, Brave and Free meeting at 6 o'clock. It says, organized to stop the dangerous industrial lithium-ion battery facilities in our neighborhood. Brian Roeder will speak about organizing strategy of Never Again Moss Landing. Brian helped organize the grassroots team that collected 150 samples that determined the level of nickel, manganese, cobalt, and lithium from Moss Landing fire. A report from research scientists at San Jose State University's Moss Landing marine laboratories have detected unusually high concentrations of heavy metal nanoparticles in marsh soils at Elkhorn Slough Reserve following the recent fire at the nearby Vistra Power Plant's lithium-ion battery storage facility. This is the fourth fire there, by the way. These industrial lithium-ion battery facilities are proposed for Santa Cruz County. Please join us to unite to make our community safe from lithium-ion battery fires, which are pretty inevitable. And a website that has a documentary is called foghornexpress.org. That's Renette Senham's website. She's a former mayor of Nevada City. And it shows the mining of lithium, like in the Congo with these children. It's just ghastly. The holding ponds, and it lists about a dozen toxic chemicals from these fires. And these lithium batteries are in cell phones, smart meters, electric vehicles, electric bikes, and you can't put the fires out. There's runaway thermal effect. We really need to stop this and protect Capitola and everywhere. Thank you.
Welcome.
John D. Gums. I'm editor of your Capitola SoCal Times, and I want to let you know that e-bike safety is also a big issue in some of the other communities where we have newspapers, for example, the Scotts Valley Times. The police department provided information on e-bike safety for that issue that's coming out February 1st. And we would be happy to work with you work with the police department to raise awareness on this very important safety issue.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Kevin McGuire of 50-plus year resident of Capitola. I love the city, so thank you guys for all your service and everything. I want to reiterate what the gentleman said about having a delineator to what is considered a resident. Do you even know what qualifies for that? There's actually really no law. I think emailed with Jamie about this. You can move here tomorrow, register to vote, and be considered a resident. So really, we need to have some prerequisite, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. We need something on there, or we need to put something on the ballot for that. And then the last thing, Peterson, when you were running for council in this chamber, they asked you a question about the grant program. You admitted the fact that you were applied and you were getting a grant awarded to you. You didn't answer that question. You left out all that in the council meeting. So that was a pretty big thing, omission by lying and not telling us about your blue circle. So that wasn't good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? Seeing none, bring us at number 6. Staff comments?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Welcome, Councilmember Morgan. We do have 3 comments for you tonight. The first one is that we have another recruitment. It's a new opportunity for a member of the community that may wish to serve on the Measure Q Oversight Committee. This is a county-wide committee intended to oversee the recently passed Measure Q, which is intended to improve safe drinking water, forest health, recreation throughout the entire county. So if you're interested in serving on the Member Q Oversight Committee, please check out our website and you'll be directed to the county to apply. But we will be looking for someone and it's a relatively short turnaround. The second item that I was going to bring up is we heard a little bit about e-bike safety. I just wanted to let the council know that I've been in communication with staff at the other jurisdictions, with Santa Cruz and the city of Scotts Valley. The goal, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to see if we can come up with some sort of shared principles about potential statewide legislation, because we are such a small jurisdiction in a larger pool that we could all, the 3 cities could jointly sign a letter. So that's what we're trying to do. I'm trying to see if Scotts Valley and the city of Santa Cruz might be able to also jointly address a letter ultimately authorized by your council to our electeds in Sacramento about maybe some potential rules that we would be able to support. And then lastly, I want to turn it over. There's one item from our city attorney. I think he wanted to clarify one point, and then to Katie.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. During public comment, an issue came up regarding the city imposing a 5-year residency requirement as a qualification to hold local office. That would be an illegal action. Qualifications to hold local office are set forth by state law, and as such, we at the city of Capitola would be preempted from changing that requirement. I'd also like to address the question regarding residency. So legal residency means your legal residence or domicile, and a person's legal residence is defined as a place of, quote, physical presence plus an intention to make the place a permanent home, end quote. That's set forth in Fenton, the Board of Directors, 1984. That's 156 Calap 3rd, 1106, pin site 1116. And there's also references in the elections code and government code as well. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to bring you an update regarding our zoning code update and implementation. Last June, we started moving forward with our multifamily zoning updates, and there was a lot of feedback from the public, to which we decided to slow down the process so we'd have adequate time to address those concerns. And I'm happy to report that next week we'll be updating our webpage with information on where we're headed with the multifamily zoning and Substantial changes have been made. And we're planning on February 25th, having a community meeting here in our community room. And then the Planning Commission will consider the public feedback that we received in the community meeting and take a look at the first draft on March 6th. So trying to get the word out ahead, and happy to, if you want to be in contact and answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any council comments?
I have some. I want to extend my gratitude to the four of you next to me. I look forward to the next 2 years, and to the community as well. I appreciate the support. I did want to just touch on the fact that back in 2024, we had talked about the e-bike safety and looking at the other cities that have done things working with our PD. And so I definitely want to see that come back. It's obviously becoming an increasingly difficult thing to control, and we want to have less mishaps as possible. And, there's one more thing. I think that was the most important one. So thank you for getting on that. I want to definitely move forward with those kinds of things. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to report that last Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I was able to attend the League of Cities North Cal Mayors and Council Member Academy, and that was a city expense. So I'm here reporting back to. I spent 2 nights up in Sacramento. It was a 3-day conference. We reviewed some very important topics that I think are very important for us: effective city governance, responsibility of city revenues, public revenues, understanding the obligations of legal powers, also social media, advocacy on key issues, and a lot of review over ethics. And so I thought it was a very great conference. I attended with Councilmember Orbach, who I'm quite sure will elaborate, but it was the highlights of those after you attend those are the meet and greets when you can meet with people during breaks, lunches, and also and after the classes on evenings, your interaction and learning from other council members and mayors throughout the state. There is right now another one going on in Southern California, but we did have people from Southern California up also, so it was very much appreciated. And so I'm reporting back as a report for that. Also, one thing, and I elaborated a little bit on it, but I'd like to see if there would be a possibility from the council support and directing staff with the outwarming support of people looking at trying to run for elective office here and being involved in Capitola politics. I know we have a leadership academy that goes on the year of the election, and I'm a strong advocate that as people run for election, they should know a lot about the city. And so the thing I've always thought was weird is that it runs in February, March, April, and then so we fill out the paperwork in June, and then it's on down the road, and it's not a lot of time to really understand a lot about the city from that part. And so now I think we have an opportunity that we have, even the 10 applicants, one that's been elected tonight, the other 9 applicants, even though 2 dropped out, they might be very encouraged in that. And so since I think we have some motivation and some interest in our community, is that something that we can look at possibly running, it every year? I don't know what that cost impact. And I did attend that class in 2020 when I knew I was going to be running in 22 because I thought it was important to have that data information important and then try to learn about your community as you do that. But taking that a little bit step forward, the only other recommendation, if that is something that's possible, is to have one of the requirements or 2 of the things or recommendations would be to come and attend a whole city council meeting from beginning to end, and then also go to a planning commission meeting and make, so I think it's just maybe a couple of things that can enhance it from the experience that I had that was very rewarding and everything. So just open to that, but also see if there is some interest in that and providing some directions to staff to look at that for the future. Thank you.
So I attended the new Council Academy in Sacramento last week with Councilmember Jensen. That was paid for by the city, and it was a great learning experience about how to be an effective advocate for my community while ensuring that we are also good financial stewards. of our city. I met with many other elected officials that are part of the League of California Cities and had an opportunity to talk one-on-one about the importance of Cliff Drive Resiliency Project with Speaker Robert Rivas. I also attended my first meeting with the Library Financing Authority and am now the chair for that board. Additionally, yesterday was Lunar New Year, so I just want to wish my family, friends, and all of the Capitola residents a happy year of the snake, wishing you all happiness, good health, and prosperity.
Thank you. I would just like to ask staff if we could look at these boards and commissions and come up with a plan to limit the terms. We've had a huge number of people applying for these, and we want to give everybody a chance to get more involved with our government here in the city. I think it would be a great way to get more people involved if we would limit the terms and let some of the younger people or some people that haven't had the opportunity to get involved.
Yeah, Mayor Clark, one of the things we've been talking about internally, not to turn this into a larger discussion, I'll keep it short, but looking at our overall bylaws for our boards and commissions, and I think there's an opportunity to make a number of potential tweaks that this council may appreciate, particularly as we look at our strategic plan about increasing inclusion and participation in the community. So that is something that's in the work plan. The city clerk, I know, is looking at it, and we're hoping to be able to have something in front of you, certainly this fiscal year, to take a look at the bylaws for all the boards and commissions and maybe come up with sort of a unified one and may be able to increase participation. And then I just quickly wanted to touch on Councilmember Jensen. We have been talking about maybe offering sort of a modified version of the academy in the off years. So there's the election years, we do the full one, and then maybe kind of a little bit more streamlined one where we're getting people involved, getting them to talk, helping bring them into the city. So I think that's a great idea.
Thank you. That brings us to item 7, consent items. All items listed on consent items will be enacted by one motion from the list below, unless one council member would like to one item for discussion.
I can move consent items 7A through F.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Item 8, general government. And we have a staff presentation.
We do. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm going to adjust this. You can hear me okay? Okay. All right. The item before you for this is the short-term wharf plan, which is an events report. Next slide. All right. Your recommended action: receive the report regarding the events held on the wharf during 2024 and provide direction regarding plans for 2025. So in May of 24, City Council heard items on the wharf, both short-term and long-term. And for the short-term, approved a plan that would include the city doing 3 wharf events. We did end up holding the wharf ribbon cutting, as well as brews and beats. In October, however, the 3rd event was ultimately canceled because the ribbon cutting for the wharf got delayed. And then, as we know, our fall events calendar in the city can be pretty busy. So we ultimately just ended up hosting the 2. The primary, one of the primary reasons for hosting these was to learn more about what it is to host events on the head of the wharf and have some information for future feasibility that in May, City Council decided would come back before this council for decisions for 2025. In planning the events, the department pulled on our 2 similar existing series, the Twilight concerts as well as Food Truck Fridays. In regards to the long-term, City Council will be receiving a presentation from Fuse Architects in next month. And so this is just specifically focusing on what happened with our events and what we should do in a short term. Next slide, please. All right, so as with any evaluation, we talk about the highlights. Overall, everybody had a great time. It was 2 very successful events, and we received a lot of positive feedback on how family-friendly those 2 events were and the life that it just brought to the head of the wharf. Next slide. Of course, there were challenges, as in any time you do anything new. One of the things that we really learned is that the head of the wharf as a venue for events is a pretty challenging venue. It has limitations, and the only way that we were able to compensate for that was by doing extra staff time and compared to other similar event series that we already produce. We also learned that the wharf, well, we knew the wharf had a capacity, a vehicle capacity of 10,000 pounds, which on its own is not a problem unless you're trying to have food trucks out there. And most of the food trucks that we would work with are over that 10,000 pound limit. So it severely limited the number of vendors that we were able to invite to the event. Additionally, when getting out on the head of the wharf, we needed to set up the event with a significant amount of time to avoid large crowds. And the food trucks needed to be out there with a long setup time. A lot of them were hesitant to commit because of the potential income loss of their time out there versus the actual time that they would be selling. We have relationships with a number of nonprofits that host beer gardens for our other similar series. However, there was some hesitancy from a lot of those nonprofits, and they were unable to commit due to the time of day that we held the events out there or the expected volume. A lot of those nonprofits just don't come with a large number of volunteers ready to do a large event like what we were planning. Because we were not able to move vehicles up and down the wharf during the event, the wonderful success that the beer gardens experienced met with a challenge as we were trying to restock during the event. And so we just had to walk supplies from the parking area all the way to the head of the event, which was the safest way to do it, but just a little bit of extra work. Another challenge was that there's the proximity of an alcohol retailer very near the event, and this posed some security challenges as consumption crossed the event boundaries. The head of the wharf is a very exposed area, so it became important for staff to problem solve shade around the sound equipment as well as the stage. In and of itself, providing shade is not an issue, but making sure that it is secure was something that we were problem solving in the moment. There is electricity down at the head of the wharf. However, just the outlet limitations, because we didn't really plan for the head of the wharf to have these sorts of events. So there was a little bit of a competition over the types of outlets that were available to the vendors. The portable stage, as a wonderful resource as it is, does take a significant amount of time to set up and tear down. And so in order to reduce staff time, we ultimately left the stage out on the wharf in between events. And as in any good event, we talk about weather. It was lovely out there, but there were some strong and surprising gusts. And we needed to make sure that there were extra measures to make for safety purposes in the event. Thank you. So looking forward to 2025, ultimately what we learned from these 2 events is that we really need a dedicated budget in order to continue to do these type of events on the wharf, as they require staff and resources. If council were to discuss doing events during spring or early summer, that would be in this current budget, and a budget amendment would be necessary, as well as staff would need to dive into immediate preparations for that. If this council were to discuss events in later summer or fall, then that could be considered with the council's budget priorities and incorporated in the upcoming budget. So to continue on just some breakdowns of the 2025 events. In regards to concerts, as some things for the council to consider, a music-only option is the most feasible option. Estimated cost would be about $4,000 to $7,000. This is a reasonable range, taking information based on our food trucks as well as our Twilight concerts. One of the things is that staff would need to do an evaluation on stage and shade options, figure out if having a portable situation or doing some kind of temporary construction specifically for concerts. Food trucks has definitely proven to be the most challenging piece of this event. Because of the weight constraints, it just limits the number of local vendors. At the time that we were running the event, the benches were not installed yet. And if we were to continue to explore using food trucks out there, staff would need to assess that situation because they are, as we know, installed now. And then a lot of the food truck hesitancy, we might need to consider having some kind of monetary incentive for food trucks to book so that they're not losing income on the time that is necessary for them to be out there. Estimated cost in that regards would be about $5,000 to $7,000. Thank you. In regards to the beer garden, while we have a lot of really great relationships with nonprofits that have hosted our beer gardens for other similar events, we really learned that this is just not the most reliable solution. We could still continue to invite them as we like to support our local nonprofits, but as we learned, we have alternative solutions now as a new law was passed in January 1st as a Type 91 beer caterer's permit. And so if we were not able to find a nonprofit to host, we could invite a brewery to do the sales instead. So it's nice to have another option there. But as I previously mentioned, security was something that we would definitely need to invest in if we were to do something in the future, and the estimated cost on that is $1,000 per event. Outside of just having events out there, the city has learned that having a porta potty out there is important, and the cost of that is about $1,200 per month. And staff is recommending adding that for 9 months out of the year until the long-term wharf plan is complete. And then, of course, as we would be putting together a budget for events, staff resources are important to look at. The current workload would need additional resources. This could be completed through employees. This could be completed through contract services or doing some kind of hybrid in order to produce a regular event series. So in summary, depending upon the number of planned events and the type of event, the cost range would be somewhere between $20,000 to $60,000 from the general fund. And as I previously stated, if council were interested in seeing something in the spring or early summer, that would require a budget amendment now. However, if council wants to consider it as part of your budget priorities, that can be evaluated for the upcoming budget. And so the recommended action is to provide direction regarding the wharf plans for the 2025 wharf events. And with that, I am available for questions.
Thank you for the presentation. I'll start it on this side.
Sure, just a couple questions. Could you elaborate on the $1,000 for a security guard for a beer event?
Yeah, sure. So hiring a security service would be we hire them hourly, and the requirements for those security services is that they don't work alone. So the expectation of that contract would be that there would be 2 people. And so with just a guess based on how we did a 5-hour event, the estimate that we were given is that they're about $100 an hour. So.
And do we have them at Monterey Park, food trucks?
So no, we do not do dedicated security for the food trucks because it's been incorporated as just part of the regular patrol. And we have city staff that are also working that event. We've never had any issues that haven't been able to be handled by city staff or patrol at Monterey Park. But in this instance, we had circumstances that we would need to plan for in the future.
Perfect. I'll save my comments for later.
If we're not, okay, why do we need an extra porta potty? I think we spent $1 million on the restroom on the wharf.
I'm going to.
Yeah, I think I can help out with that a little bit, and then I think the Public Works Director may be able to help further. So originally the wharf plan had the restrooms at the foot of the wharf, and then we were talking about a new restroom out at the head of the wharf. That was intended to sort of supplement the restrooms that were part of the old boathouse, wharf house restaurant. And as part of when we were looking at the overall costs and we were seeing a lot of change orders, we ended up taking out the restrooms at the head of the wharf. That Portland Loo, I think it was called, for those of you who remember, it was a stainless steel sort of all-weather thing. So it was a decision we made as a cost savings measure. I think in the long term, we're going to be talking, well, in not too long term, next month, we're going to be talking about the long-term wharf plan. And at that point, you're going to see different options that would involve new structures, maybe other sort of modular type things and opportunities to get restrooms out there. But in the near term, especially with these events and with the business out there, I think staff is really recommending we probably need to have the porta potties out there moving forward for at least 9 months out of the year. And hopefully it's just a one summer option and we're able to start implementing the long-term plan relatively soon.
Nikki, can the food trucks be located in the parking lot at the base of the wharf? And not on the wharf, if that's a limitation in terms of weight? Can they be in the parking lot before you?
Yes, they definitely could be in that area. I would not recommend having a beer garden in that area, however. And so in just like a grant in the event design aspect of it, having pieces of an event separated could be logistically challenging. And then we did reserve a lot of the parking spaces for the event. So through the special event process, we had actually collected we had parking spaces so that we could dedicate them to the band members and the beer garden. And so all of those parking spaces were taken by somebody who was involved in the event. And so that whole space became very congested with people trying to get to the event with just regular traffic flow and trying to turn around, and then the hotel and then the house and the residents that are there. And then all the parking spaces taken up for the event. So we would have to kind of rethink where we move things for logistics if we were to put the food trucks there, but it's definitely possible.
Questions on this side?
I think that was my question about maybe relocating the trucks. Also, do we have like a landscaping like go-kart or something? Not go-kart, but golf cart. Thank you. To make transport easier. I don't know if we have one in the courtyard or what, but that's just an idea, throwing that out there for getting back and forth. And yeah, I think that was my only question. Thank you.
Would you like me to answer? So we do. So my department does actually have a little golf cart. It was a hand-me-down from PD. And during the second event, we did actually have it out there and we were using it. The first event, we just got really lucky and had like a little hand cart that we were able to transport stuff from the parking lot down. Moving vehicles in general, when you have an event out there, you have a large number of people. And so just still moving vehicles up and down is ultimately at one point we had our public works truck from the crew that was out there, and we just had them park because we didn't feel safe having them exit, and they didn't have a place to park at the end. So just vehicles and large crowds are problematic, but the golf cart takes up a smaller footprint and was able to help us move things around. Mm-hmm.
I just have a few questions. I'm curious, what is the breakdown of the estimated cost for concerts, $4,000 to $7,000? Like, what is the bulk of that going towards specifically?
Yeah, so two of the pieces there is that so we modeled the ribbon cutting after the way that we kind of set up a Twilight concert. And in a Twilight concert, we have a contracted sound engineer in addition to the band that is playing. And so that's two expenses that, depending upon the length of time. So the ribbon cutting was a longer time frame than what a Twilight concert is, that the sound engineer was out there and contracted for. And so just with those two pieces, they're each in the $2,500 range. Well, the band is not that much, but so that's part of the expenses. The second one, we modeled it more off of the Food Truck Fridays, and the band didn't do sound. I'm sorry, the band did their own sound. We didn't have a sound engineer for the second one. And so that's where some of the range comes in, is just how long of a set they were playing, how much we're paying the bands, how much, whether or not we're having a sound engineer out there or not. And then also the aspects of what kind of stage setup we have. So if we're using the portable stage, that does require more staff time in order to set that up.
Can I stop you? Is staff time included in this estimate? I didn't believe that it was.
Yeah, there was definitely staff time is included.
Staff time is included.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay, so staff time for setup, sound engineer, and band fees is kind of the main cost.
Yeah, those are the main things. And again, we would need to look at kind of how the space is set up to make sure that all the needs are met. So like I had mentioned, we were problem solving shade, and if we were to continue to do this, we would just need to have it be a setup that would be something ready to continue to do, or to do an event series.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not always necessary to have the sound engineer, it sounds like.
No, it's not always necessary. You do have to make sure that the band is able and ready to do their own sound, and not all bands have all the equipment in order to be able to do that. But it's part of the expectation for anybody that is playing a Food Truck Friday event. And so that was very much the reason why we specifically did both. We wanted to see what it was like. The pro to having a sound engineer is that you can really hear the sound, and there wasn't, like even being at the end of the wharf and being there, that really good high quality. Not having a sound engineer, it was still a really great experience. We even went to the other end of the wharf and just tested to see what it was like. And it was enjoyable to even people that were walking up and down.
Great, thank you. And then the food truck estimate, that's not also encompassing a concert, is it? it's just for the food trucks. Is that correct? $5,000 to $7,000.
Yeah, and it's a lot of the right. Like if a big part of the challenges for food trucks was that the weight limit severely reduced the number of individuals that were willing to come. And then once they heard how long they would have to sit there without making anything, was also another reason why we were declined. And so a lot of ways that this is compensated for is by providing a monetary incentive in order to compensate for the time that they're just sitting there without any options.
Okay, so is that monetary compensation encompass basically the entire $5,000 to $7,000, or is it between that and the staff time associated with organizing it?
No, it was really more of just like the incentives and the multiple trucks that would be out there and making sure that there were enough trucks out there, because there is a balance to hit if you just have one truck. It's great for the truck, but you get really, really long lines and people get really frustrated. And so as part of an event producer, you want to make sure that the trucks are making enough money and the people aren't having to wait in line. So it's trying to hit that happy medium that everybody feels is a successful event.
Okay, and just one last question about the porta potty requirement. Is that based on a specific, like a wait time of the bathroom facilities? Are there huge lines preventing people from using those? I know they're not immediately close to the end of the wharf, but I feel like they are easily within walking distance for the majority of people, right?
Yes, I would say that we had the porta potty out there already for other reasons by the time that we were already doing the events. And so I would defer to what the city manager was referencing earlier. But I will also say that when it came time to actually doing the event and running the event, I was very grateful that there was a porta potty there, because it added to a lot of efficiency, and it would really remove people from the event. And I think it actually allowed for better security when it came to alcohol consumption and actually having a restroom in that space.
Sure, and that makes a lot of sense to me. I was under the impression that there was recommendation to host the porta potty for 9 months out of the year continuously, not dependent on events. Is that correct?
Let me be clear. This was coming not just from REC. This was coming from Public Works, I think, based on some of their observing of how things were getting used out there. I think the 9 months out of the year, honestly, we were pulling this staff report together pretty quickly. We had a lot on our plate these last couple of weeks. So I think if at the end of the day, the council says, look, let's defer kicking off our special event things on the wharf until late summer or fall, I think we could shorten that time frame up. I don't think that we need to have them November and December on the wharf, probably not January, February, March again. So I think we could tighten that time frame up, but during the peak summer, we are recommending including that.
And that's based on an idea that the lines are too long and I'm not talking about events. Events, it's very easy for me to understand if you have a ton of people at the end of the wharf, but outside of events, the recommendation by Public Works is to have a porta potty at the end of the wharf because the bathroom facilities at the front of the wharf are overused to the extent that is preventing people from using them.
I think it also has to do with just the accessibility, and then also the bringing them out, taking them back, bringing them out, taking them back, and the overall cost. I think I would defer to Jessica if she has more information on that. But so it's kind of multiple factors. But at the end of the day, we looked at it and said around $1,000 a month covers them out there, getting them serviced as much as we want, and they're available. I don't know if there's anything else that I'm missing.
Evening, council members. So the standard for new public facilities, which the wharf is a public facility considered a park space, is 500 feet in between restroom facilities, mostly for accessibility purposes. And so the distance between approximately where the boat and bait operation is now and the current restroom facility we have is over 700 feet.
Can you tell me how many of our public facilities meet the 500 feet requirement?
Not off the top of my head, but this is for new public facilities built after, I want to say, 2012.
Got it. Sort of an accessibility issue. Okay, thank you.
I'll be brief because we're falling behind. My question is it an ABC law for the security?
Yes, it is. That there for any event production, to have a security plan as part of it, and with the issues that occurred at this event, having dedicated security is something that staff recommends.
But we don't have them at the Twilight or the Monterey Park?
So Twilight concerts, we're not providing alcohol. But at the Monterey Park Food Truck Fridays, we do have the beer garden. And the nature of the event, the city staffing and being part of just having security as patrol has been a successful way of managing security.
No more questions. Thank you. That'll bring us to public comment. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth Cahalan, and I've been sitting here listening to you guys make decisions and discussions about things you have no experience with. One of the things I offered when you first started talking about the wharf was to help you. So a lot of these angst that you had, we could have avoided. Those of you asking about porta potties or put the food trucks on the street tells me you have never volunteered for any of the events within the village. We have very successful events within this village. So why can the city not? Well, that has to do with paying employees. Our events are successful because of the volunteers who give their time and energy. The city cannot make a positive event that will not spend their general fund money because they are paying people to do what we receive volunteers to do. Myself alone for the Art and Wine has 75 plus volunteers. That doesn't include the rest the chamber brings. The BIA, we have 30 to 40 volunteers for our sip and strolls. I do not see that happening for your events. I see you spending money. I think the best use of the wharf is for the BIA, the chamber, and maybe a special group be able to put on one event a year and use it for that venue. We know about bands and sound systems. We know about food trucks and catering. We know about the RBS and the ABC. These are things that are not really in your bandwagon. And I think if you're not going to bring the city and the community together, then you need to step down because $20,000 to $60,000 out of the general fund is ridiculous.
Thank you. Welcome.
I appreciate the previous speaker's comments. They seem right on. As I was listening, I was thinking of the expenses for the city on all this, which seemed quite high. And also, it seems like it was an unwise decision to remove having a restroom built in with the plant. Porta potties are very problematic, very chemical, and very expensive. So it seems like arranging events where people are walking, it's inexpensive, and you don't have heavy vehicles. It just seems like so many expensive problems to be resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move to council comment. It's time to start on this.
Thank you. Yes, so as was stated during public comment, I
definitely don't want to see us amend any of our budget thus far. If it's something that we want to work on for coming up years, then I'm open to looking at that. I don't want it to mean that we don't utilize our wharf. I want us to be able to work with other agencies that are willing and able to get some events out there that are going to, echo what we have, family-friendly thing, music, supporting local businesses, things like that. So I would rather revisit the budgetary items, not amend what we have so far. And definitely come back to us with the expense of getting an actual restroom out on the end. Thank you.
I would generally agree with that. We do have a tight budget and responsibility to act with fiscal conservancy with public funds. I just have one question regarding the public comment of outside organizations, including the Chamber, the BIA, of hosting events on the wharf. Is there anything currently preventing them from doing that?
No, there really isn't. I mean, I think the only restriction is, as soon as we get into the beach and the wharf, there's a lot of stuff in our coastal plan, our local coastal plan with the Coastal Commission that talks about it being accessible. So I think we have to do a deeper dive, but I don't think there's any reason. I think if it was a private event, that would probably create problems, but a public event, car show, sip and stroll, art sale, those kinds of things, I think we could process a special event for council consideration.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think I'd like to revisit this during budget planning to see if we even have a need to allocate additional funding for these events and if they're in line with the council direction. And in the meantime, I would highly encourage organizations, representatives such as Mary Beth Cahalan, the BIA, the Chamber, to think of ideas. I think we have this beautiful new wharf, so let's use it. Thanks.
I'm concerned about the cost and staff time as well, and I prefer to hold off on events on the wharf because I'd rather save that money for our long-term wharf plan.
Yeah, so a person that volunteers a lot in the community and has been at the sip and strolls and volunteers, and then also, let's just say the Art and Wine Festival, and using it as an example. We look at a sip and stroll. I've heard numbers, and I don't want to be quoted on, but a success rate of making about $8,000 at an event. Look at our Art and Wine Festival; it makes well over $50,000 to $60,000, $70,000 at an event. So there are, and how they're able to generate those funds is by being involved with volunteers and stuff. So I'm a huge supporter. We have a beautiful wharf. We want to have, I think, events on the wharf, and I think we have to probably look at how else can we have and challenge ourselves as a community to obtain something. I could not today vote to increase budget and spend for a party on the wharf when we have potholes all over our community. So I would like to see some direction from staff to go back and work directly with the Chamber, work with the BIA, have a collaboration together to see how we could it be an extension of the wharfs, of the concert series that we see in Esplanade Park? Do we have one more or two more of those, at a different time at the end of the season on the wharf? We're looking at what the weather is. But to challenge ourselves to not just be selfish and look at budget and say we can't afford it, but look at being optimistic and saying it's not just about money, it's about community and how can we all work together. So that's what I would like to see. And I do have one just follow-up question, I'm sorry, and not to take the conversation a different way. Is there a reason why the food truck Friday thing is only at Monterey Park? And have we ever thought about that? And maybe it can in the future. Could it be at Jade Street? So, as we look at families that are challenged and for commuting back and forth and after work and getting to places, to have an event over there. So we make sure we serve all in our community.
Would you like me to respond to that?
Sure. Sure, it's just a question. I don't mean to take the conversation off somewhere different.
Yeah, sure. So for Food Truck Fridays, the layout includes a beer garden, and Jade Street Park is school district property. And because of that, alcohol is not allowed on that property. And so if we were to do a similar type of event at Jade Street Park, which we have done for July we've done it for 2, maybe 3 years now. We've had food trucks in collaboration with some fun field games during July. They are not as successful if we do not have a beer garden. And so that is why they are in Monterey Park.
Yeah, I would like to work towards celebrating not having an alcohol event and be a focused family. So that'd be something that we all could work together hard as a community and encourage people to come out more as a family event than come out and have a beer. So thanks.
Well, we sold a bill of goods to the public with our new wharf that we were going to have these great things happening out there. So I think we owe it to them to continue. Since we don't have it in the budget, maybe the first go around we can have the the BIA work with other community members and maybe sponsorship and get something going that way. And then when we can budget for the future, we do that. But we really need to follow up on our word when we said we were going to open the wharf and then have these celebrations out there. So I'd like to see the staff continue to work on that with the BIA and community members to see what we can come up with. Thank you.
So council's welcome to make a motion. At this point, I can reiterate kind of what I think I'm hearing, and we'll see if we get nods around the table. And if I get it wrong, please let me know.
I don't think we need to make a motion as long as you receive the staff receives the message and continues what I think we're all in agreement. We need to keep working on having something going on at the wharf.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll develop maybe some sort of extension of our summer Twilight concert series into the fall, take a look into the late summer, take a look at what that would look like, present that in the budget. We'll coordinate with the BIA and the chamber, see if they have any interest in doing an event on the wharf, and as well as get their input about, the kind of the scheduling and how the Twilight concerts sort of work. I want to be clear, we're not going to propose taking the Twilight concerts away from the village. I think those are really important for the BIA and for the village. It would be something added on, and you can consider it in the budget. Is that consistent with folks' understanding?
It is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that brings us to item 8B. City council appointments to city advisory bodies.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight, staff is recommending to appoint members of the public to the City of Capitola's Art and Cultural Commission, Commission on the Environment, and Finance Advisory Committee. And also appoint an alternative member of the public to represent Capitola on the RTC's Bicycle Advisory Committee. The Art and Cultural Commission is composed of 5 at-large members, 1 artist, and 1 art professional. The commission also has 1 rep from the Planning Commission and 1 rep from the City Council. These members each serve a 2-year term with terms expiring December 2026. On January 16, the council appointed an artist, arts professional, and 4 at-large members. 1 applicant withdrawn, James Wallace. Art and Cultural Commission appointments.
So at this time, if the council would like to nominate a person to fill the remaining at-large seat on the Art and Cultural Commission, we can have some discussion about that. However, before we make a motion to do any appointments this evening, we would need to take public comment.
Just a follow-up for clarification. Last time we went through this, I think I thought we were on the same page saying that we all had went through and appointed one and that we were going to strongly focus on the new council member who would be sitting here input. So I'd want to make sure we weighed in very heavily on that. Thank you.
It is an at-large appointment. The whole council would need to vote on the appointment. It's not an individual nomination, but sure, that's definitely taken into consideration.
Yeah, I thought that's the process we kind of went through before kind of naming people. So want to make sure we give that opportunity to have Ms. Morgan weigh in on that.
Madam Clerk, question for public comment. Are we going to do one on each commission, or?
We will go through this process for each commission, but we can take public comment all at once.
We can go ahead and take public comment for all the commissions now and
Great.
get that done. Anybody would like to speak on the advisory boards or commissions? You're welcome to do so now.
Hi again. I just wanted to say that if you're looking at the Arts Commission, it would be really great if Karen Anderson could be part of that. She works strongly with the BIA, and she works with us with our events, and it would be nice to have that on the Arts Commission. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Seeing none, that brings us back, and we will start with the Arts Commission recommendation.
I would like to go with the recommendation from Ms. Kalin to appoint Karen Anderson.
I second.
First and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. So we will go ahead and move on to the Commission on the Environment.
The Commission on the Environment is composed of 4 members, each appointed by a City Council member and 1 City Council representative. These members each serve a 2-year term with terms expiring December 2026. So we have Council Representative, Councilmember Orbach, and then a to-be-determined appointee.
So for this group, each council member gets to have a choice except for Councilmember Orbach. So at this time, I'll go ahead and take each of your appointments, and the slide said TBD because when we created the slides, we didn't have Councilmember Morgan's name, but Councilmember Morgan also gets an appointment. So at this time, we'll go through, we can go alphabetically, so starting with Councilmember Jensen.
Dennis Norton.
And Councilmember Morgan.
Michelle Law.
Councilmember Orbach. Oh, I'm sorry. We're going to skip Councilmember Orbach and we'll move on to Vice Mayor Peterson.
Peter Welk, please.
So I'm not sure that Peter Wilk actually applied to be a part of this group.
His term expired.
And he did not apply to be reappointed. And so I can pull up the list if you'd like to see the list of applicants.
Sure, no, I have it before me, sorry.
Okay, great.
I wasn't sure of the color coding. Okay.
Do you need a recommendation?
Please, yeah.
If you would appoint Michael Maroney.
Michael Morani.
And then Mayor Clark.
John Mulry.
Okay, so then we have our 4 appointments, and then if someone would like to make a motion in a second, we can go ahead and move on to the next group.
I can move all of the appointees to the Commission on the Environment.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. And then
Financial Advisory Committee is composed of 3 members appointed by the City Council and 2 business representatives who are nominated by the Capitola Chamber of Commerce and appointed by the City Council. The committee also has 2 representatives from City Council. These members each serve a 2-year term expiring December 2026. And the Chamber of Commerce recommendations are Leslie Nielsen and Matt Arthur.
So one thing to note is one of the council seats on this group is currently vacant as it was filled by former Mayor Brooks, and we'll be going over that appointment at the last item for tonight's meeting. So it says vacant, but we will address it later on this evening for the council seat. So at this time, we're just looking for the 3 regular members and then confirmation of the business representatives.
Do we make recommendations? Yes. I'd like to appoint Emily Nguyen.
Anthony Rovey,
Sorry.
would you like it by?
Come back to me.
I'll give Anthony, you can give Rovey.
Okay, sounds good. Deal.
And then the two business representatives. So the Chamber of Commerce did provide a recommendation, and the council can choose to appoint that recommendation.
Is anybody appointing that?
So the recommendation from the Chamber of Commerce was to appoint Leslie Nielsen and Matt Arthur.
I'd like to appoint Leslie Nielsen, please.
And I'll do Matt Arthur. I mean, you do only one, or you can do two.
It's one or two per the bylaws.
Sorry, I mean, I pointed out Anthony Rovey.
So these appointments are made by the whole city council, so it's up to you guys. We still would need a motion and vote to appoint all of them.
I'll recommend Matt Arthur then.
Great. I would just need a motion and a vote.
Can move the appointments to the Financial Advisory.
We have one more at large.
So it's 3 members at large, and we have Emily Nguyen, and then I believe it was Anthony Rovey, and then was it Anthony Guajardo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was that not what was intended?
Anthony Rovey?
Yeah. Anthony Rovey and Anthony Guajardo.
No, it's Matt Arthur, Leslie Nielsen, right, of the business, Anthony Rovey.
So that does leave then one at-large seat. I'm sorry, I think I got confused because you both said Anthony's.
I am confused.
I'd like
trying to fight over it.
And then,
okay.
then Emmeline, you already said her.
I'd like to nominate Keith Cahalan for an at-large.
Okay, great. So there was a motion on the floor by Councilmember Morgan. Does the motion still stand?
My motion still stands. Thank you.
I second that motion.
Okay.
You're in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. And so the last remaining board for the City of Capitola is the Historical Museum Board, which is composed of 7 members. These members serve a 3-year term, which expires in June. It's the only group for the city that has a term expiring in June. There is an unscheduled vacancy. There was one application on file. However, the board has not had a chance to meet with the applicant yet, and they request to continue the recruitment process. So tonight, staff is not recommending an appointment. We would like to hold off and allow for continuation of that recruitment. And then finally, we have the nomination of a member of the public to serve as an alternate representing Capitola on the RTC Bicycle Advisory Committee. The RTC received an application from a resident named Christopher O'Connell, so the City Council can make a motion to nominate this person to serve as an alternate. We do currently have a voting member as a representative of Capitola, Polly Bradley, on this board, so this would be an alternate in case she can't attend the meetings.
I can move to appoint Christopher O'Connell as the RTC. Oh, thank you. That's the word. Alternate for the RTC Bicycle Advisory Committee.
I'll second.
I mean, a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that covers the end of the item. Thank you.
I believe we were going to potentially appoint somebody to the nonprofit organization. Jamie?
The CAB,
Yes.
that's going to be covered under the last item this evening under the regional boards and committees.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Looking at the time and see if do we need a break for the council or should we continue on?
Maybe a restroom.
Yes, let's take a 3 to 5 minute. Thank you.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Today before you is a request for a public hearing for our CDBG program income funds. In 2014, we had a CDBG rehab program in which one of the homeowners paid off their 2014 loan. So that money, the program income, is required to be spent before we start utilizing funds, drawing down the funds for the 2023 CDBG grant that we received for our community center. So tonight, staff is requesting that you have a public hearing on this item And then that $160,000 would be utilized towards the contingency fund for our community center. So that's what's before you tonight. So tonight, the staff recommendation is to conduct a public hearing and receive public comment regarding program income and its eligibility, uses, and adopt a resolution allocating $160,240.62 of program income for the community center rehab project, and adopt a resolution amending 2024-2025 budget. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Council questions?
Can you just clarify how that the funds, sort of the capacity in which these funds need to be allocated and like how quickly and all that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So CDBG funds must be allocated towards low and moderate income households. And so programs that we've had in the past is food services, which we have a program from 2022 that's currently active for $500,000 for 3 local nonprofits. And so they can be utilized towards that. We've, in the past during COVID, we had some economic development that was accomplished under CDBG funds. And then we can also do it for public facilities. So our request this evening is to utilize the funds towards public facilities. And right now there's not much of a contingency fund tied to our community center. So this will provide us a little more buffer in terms of construction when we get underway and budget amendments. So.
Great, thank you.
Questions over here? Seeing no more questions, we will open it up to public comment. No public comment. We will return back to council for comments. Start on this side.
No comments.
No comments.
When the presentation is that well, we have no comments. Thank you.
Okay, I can make a motion to approve the resolution of the 2024-2025 budget, allocating the $160,240.62 to the community center rehabilitation project.
I second that.
The first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mayor, the recommended action for that item involved 2 resolutions. So I just wanted to clarify if the motion made was to adopt both resolutions or just the one.
My motion was to adopt both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brings us to item D, Community Center Renovation Project.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Very excited to bring this item to you today. It's been about 2 years of work on this one, and so we are ready to get building our project. So the Community Center Renovation Project, next slide, please. These are the recommended actions for this evening: to approve a construction contract, and so we can issue a notice to proceed, approve an amendment with our architect team, and approve a resolution amending the fiscal year budget to include the funds that we've gotten for this project and spend that giant check that Don Addis gave us about a year ago. Next slide, please. So the project timeline is a little small here, but we started with a long-term use agreement. The property is owned by the Soquel Union Elementary School District in November of 2022. The community center is a 1980s era building that has not been renovated since its construction. So the long-term use agreement included provisions for the city to make specific improvements to the building within 4 years of so having that contract, which puts us at November of 2026 to do those improvements. In February 2023, Council approved a design amendment with BLRA Architects. And in summer 2023, we brought in a conceptual design and at the same time received $1 million supported by Assemblymember Don Addis and administrated through the California Natural Resources Agency. We received Planning Commission approval for the project in December of 2023. And summer of 2024, we were notified we were awarded CDBG money. That was a grant applied for in conjunction with the Community and Economic Development Department. In fall 2024, we bid the project, and we are excited to get construction going in the next few months. Next slide. So key features of this renovation is a lot of work to the exterior. It has not been, again, renovated since the 1980s. It requires a roof replacement, new siding and windows, multiple ADA improvements, which include the addition of an accessible single-user restroom. Other interior improvements include a new HVAC system with zones. As you know, there are multiple rooms and configurations for the community center, so having those be able to be cooled and heated individually, as well as the office spaces. Office additions to make it better for our community services and recreation department to function, and modern systems for the public to use that space. And then we split up some additive alternatives for bidding purposes for the project, just because the bidding environment has been very wild lately. And so we wanted to make sure that when we bid this project, we had a project we could afford to construct. Next slide, please. So here are some renderings. These aren't reflective of the landscaping, just reflective of the exterior of the building. Again, it is a roof replacement. It's new fiber cement siding. So some of that does look like wood and some of it is colored, but it's all fiber cement for durability. New doors and windows, and then a cleanup of the concrete piers to get that paint off and have a more uniform look. The roof line will also extend over the wood rafters there that have, some of which have rotted out, which was a very cool architectural design in the 1980s, but isn't really great for weathering. So the rotted ones will be replaced, and then all of them will be still visible, but covered by the roof line. Next slide, please. Just a before and after comparison. This is if you're looking at it from the Opal Cliffs kind of side parking lot. There is a little bit of color on the patio area, so this is more of a blue-green. Next slide, please. And then over in the patio area where the large patios is more of a yellow color. Next slide. So here, this is a current configuration of the interior of the community center. The boxes in blue are the office spaces. I want to say there are 3 to 4 people in each of these small office spaces. The yellow is the entry for the public, the service desk, which is not ADA. The counters are too high to be considered ADA. The green are the current storage spaces, which are long and awkward. And then the orange there is our kitchen, which now that the building is being upgraded would not be compliant with environmental health or ADA. So that is a big part of this project. Next slide. So again, improvements to the kitchen, including a large center island, dividing up some of those office spaces and making the entry ADA. The purple is that single-user ADA restroom. And then one of the biggest changes to this project is the delineation of space. So currently there are one large room that can be divided into 3. That purple there is a collapsible wall, which during this, the investigation and some of the public outreach a couple years ago at this point for this project, we really discovered that it's often that they use the 2 spaces, but not very often that they use the 3. And then that room there to the right is often used for art. It has the best light, I understand, and it is very often reserved for that purpose. And then in addition, an effective collapsible wall that's soundproof and easy to use is very expensive. So early on, the decision was made to have that wall there in green be a permanent wall. And that is also the new storage facility for all of the materials, which is way more accessible than those tiny, skinny closets that they had before. Next slide, please. So we put this project out to bid in October of 2024. We had a mandatory pre-bid job walk, which means any contractor who was going to bid on the project had to come and look at the site and listen to all the mandatory submittals they had to do for this project, some of which is federally funded, which makes a huge difference. We extended this over the holiday period to make sure we got the most responses possible, and we got 6 bids, which is a really big deal for a city of our size. We were really hoping for 3 for it to be competitive, so to get 6 was really impressive.
The bid range was from 3.76 to 4.88 million. There was one outlier in there that I think they added their ad alternatives into their base bid. Even taking out their ad alternatives, they still didn't have the lowest base bid. So the average bid range, excluding that outlier, was about 4.23 million. So really pretty close and really competitive. So SSB Contracting out of Salinas was the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. Responsive meaning they submitted all the forms they needed to be legally, that we can go into contract with them, and responsible meaning that they have done similar projects before and that their bid was reasonable. It wasn't so low that there's no way they could do the work. So responsible and responsive. And that base bid was $3.7 million. So the funding for this project comes from multiple sources. There was quite a bit of money from the general fund appropriated in 22-23 and in 24-25. The grant supported by Assemblymember Addis, the CDBG grant, and then the funds you just approved in the last item for about a $6.2 million budget. We've expended about $600,000 on the design of this project and a $300,000 construction management person. So that is a day-to-day person on the project site, and also someone who helped with bidding and outreach to contractors, pre-bidding, and someone who helps us with all of our paperwork. And so for total pre-construction cost of $913,000, leaving about $5.24 remaining for construction. Next slide, please. So this is a lot of information. I'm going to break it down. Please feel free to ask questions. So when we got the cost estimate for this project, it was beyond the amount of funds that we had. And so we broke it down to multiple ad alternatives. So in the event we only had enough funding for the base bid, we had a comprehensive project. Some of the adults taken out of this project were things that are really very much required, like C1 site exterior site improvements are all the ADA improvements on the outside of the building. So that's something that's not really optional. And that also goes for things like the EV charging equipment that is part of the Green Building Code and required for a renovation of this type, the site electrical to support all of this new equipment and HVAC, the AV equipment, the acoustic improvements to make the rooms just more usable, less echoey, and then all of the kitchen improvements. So for the staff recommendation, we are only recommending not doing the generator improvements and the landscaping improvements, which I will get into in following slides. So our contract price for this would be $4.725, and then with a contingency of a little less than 10%, which is appropriate for the size of our project, plus a PG&E service upgrade that's required to support the new HVAC system. It brings us to a total construction cost of $5.247 million. Next slide, please. So again, those ad alternative that are not being recommended is the generator. We do have one that is relatively new and will support the building and can be deferred to another time. There's a lot of grant opportunities for emergency shelter type things to replace generators. So that is something we can definitely fund at a later date. The other adult was the landscaping and patios, and these were a lot of extras. Landscape architects like to do a lot of fancy plantings and water features, which would be lovely, but we don't have funds for at this time. There is a possibility with our pending CDBG grant funding that we applied for in the last round that we can incorporate this during the project construction. Next slide, please. So improvements that are being done to the patio areas with this base bid project are all of this exterior site work. So from the patios back to the parking lot, the entranceway, and then the sidewalk that goes to all the ADA parking spaces. And then also additionally, a resurfacing of the large patio. There's a lot of kind of odd drainage and sloping issues on that patio that are part of an ADA, that are not ADA compliant. So that would be resurfaced in a very artistic way. Next slide. These items would not be done unless we decided to incorporate that alternative bid at a later date. And so that includes on the green there, kind of seating, arena type seating, and then a connection to the new playground, which we could still do with the playground project later this year. Enhanced patios for the other 2 patios, inclusive of a water feature. So these are definitely items that we can consider either later in the project once we can determine if our contingency won't be spent or if we have CDBG funds available in the future. Next slide, please. So the contract approval, if approved this evening, construction is expected to start towards the end of February or beginning of March and last approximately a year. There will be phases of construction. This is just an example, but a lot of the exterior renovations would happen in the spring or summer when it's not raining, and the interior ones in the summer and fall, with an opening in early 2016, and staff intends on bringing quarterly construction and budget updates to the council to stay apprised of the project. Slide, please. Also included for your consideration is an amendment to the architect contract. They have done many iterations of this project for our different funding sources that we received, and then also to do those bidding adults. And so this would be to support the construction administration for any amendments we have to do during the course of construction in this project, which would bring our post-amendment value to about $580,000, which is approximately 11% of this project, which is in line with a project of this size. And there's also an amendment to the budget to incorporate all the funds for this project. Next slide. So the language of the staff recommendation is on the screen, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for the presentation. Questions from the council?
Yeah, I have questions, and I'll come back around to comments. Just questions first. One thing I saw highlighted on there in the kitchen improvement was we were not going to do the sinks. What kind of impact would that look like? I mean, if we're spending millions of dollars, what does that look like when you walk in and you see an old sink and the rest of everything looks like the rest of the kitchen's done? Did I see that correctly?
So that was an add alternative that I am recommending that we do, is to do all of those replacements of all of those fixtures, less the hood in the kitchen because the hood is relatively new.
I thought it was noted somewhere. I thought it was in our staff report that said minus the sinks, but I'm sorry, I must. Okay. I didn't see it tonight, but I thought I saw it in our packet. It said minus sinks, but if the sinks are included, great. My other question is regarding the generator that's there now, but we're doing a PG upgrade service. That is our OES center, right? For if we had to activate, if there's flooding or something going on, would the new generator be, the generator that's existing that's kind of new, would it be able to accommodate the load that's going to be increased with the new PG upgrade?
So the community centers uses emergency evacuation center. I believe this building is our emergency operations center. But yes, it would handle the load for that purpose. However, we couldn't use everything. So yes, we could run the heater if it's cold, air conditioner that's hot, but like not to its maximum potential.
I thought the Jade Street was back up if this was impacted. So that was all my comments.
It may be listed as a backup. We have kind of a hierarchy where we go first tier, Jade Street, library. I can't remember exactly the order. Library doesn't have backup power now. They're trying to work on that. The backup power has been in Jade Street for a long time, mostly because of the repeater. Our police radio is up there, ensured that they have power.
Those are all my questions. I come back later for comments.
I was just curious how many of the charging centers will be up there in the parking lot.
There's 2 dual port chargers, so 4 connections.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So seeing no further questions, we can open it up to public comment. Welcome.
Hi, well, thank you. I know everybody's really tired. I was just listening to that, and you said you were really excited to present that, and I was really excited to hear that, too. That's exciting. I think you did an excellent job on the budget. Now that I'm on the FAC, I'm going to start looking at the budget a lot more, so that's great. And then the generator issue was spinning around in my mind early, and I'm glad a lot of you talked about that. My husband's down in LA and has been for 2 weeks doing psychological first aid with the first responders, and I just love that we're thinking about making sure we're ready for anything like that if it should happen. So there was a line item in the budget for a generator. And there was a contingency, again, well managed to leave that kind of a contingency in the plan. But if you have any cost savings or are able to use the contingency closer to the end of the project to put that back in, I would highly recommend you think about it, because you kind of can't have enough of those emergency spaces when you need them. So thank you for the great work and for considering that.
Thank you. Any other comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council comments.
Yes, great job. Thank you. I appreciate the attention to the budget as well. I would like to keep the generator as a contingent item, because I think we did use Jade Street recently as a shelter, right?
That is correct. We did open it. I don't think we had very many visitors, but we did open it, I think,
yeah.
during the 20...
Might have been the CZU fires and...
Yeah.
2023 too, maybe. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely think that that's an item of importance. Yeah, as long as the sink upgrades are in there too, this looks awesome. I'm really excited.
I'll second that. I'm just very excited. I think you've all done a great job. So looking forward to getting construction underway on this. Thanks.
Same ditto on a great job. My kids, they're there for Camp Capitola. We go to Jade Street Park often, so I'm really excited for the upgrades. And I'm also excited that the community will have this space for events, and hopefully we'll see it be utilized in that way in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So my comments are based around, I love the project. Congratulations. Also, great job on the bidder solicitation. But I just think maybe we can take a step back for a second and just talk about, as much as I and I think everybody else is in support of the project, it's just making sure that we maybe reflect back, because we're newer on the council, the funding mechanism for it. And I think some of these questions that I posed to staff, it might be good just to go through and reflect on them a little bit. One thing is just identifying that at the Jade Street Park, our community, us, the council, our council, and previous councils are making, about $1.6 million into the Jade Street Community Center project. We also have a commitment to the County Park Friends for let's just say a project that we work together on for the playground. And they have now exceeded their goals of raising $1 million. So we're already, I think, funded approximately $450,000 toward that. And we are going to be now looked at on our next round of budget, automatically another $450,000 to make sure that accessible playground goes in. So it's quite an investment that we're making into the Jade Street facility, which I think we're all proud of. But to again identify the amount of resources, the amount of money that we're funding into the Jade Street Center. So I look at that, for our community to look at some celebrating things that we're doing, but that's a huge allocation of $2.6 million plus or minus. And I look to staff to correct me on those numbers. And then if we go back a couple years, we have a library and general fund outlay onto library, about another $800,000. We spend, approximately maybe $4 million of city money on the wharf. And so there's some amazing things that are going on in the community that, our city is doing over the last 8 years, which I think are things to look at. But again, there are costs to selecting those things, investing that kind of money into the community center, which we're all going to reap the benefits are. And I like a community center because we're talking about youth, we're talking about seniors, everything. But what is the downside to that? Our other things have to go undone. So priorities that were made by previous council and a council tonight that we'll be voting on for that. So what are those sacrifices that I think we should just remember? We should look at our infrastructure in our city. So since we are allocating so many funds to this, we should be looking in the future that as much as we have been building some amazing things, wharf, library, Jade Street thing, there are infrastructure issues that are being not looked at the same way. And just to digress for a second, if you look at our paving management plan, we had an engineer look at it. we're supposed to spend $2.2 million a year for 5 years. And right now, I think the numbers that we're looking at in the last 3 years are under $1 million. So we're not making investment in our infrastructure, or making investment in a lot of community spaces. So, and which I totally support. So just reflecting back on the great things we're doing, but to know that we probably have to look at some balance also at the same time moving forward on infrastructure as we're looking at increased housing and stuff like that. So again, great project. Nice job on the bids and getting to that point. And I guess city staff, if any of those numbers were out of context or anything, Jamie, maybe you could clarify them, or if I make sure that I recollect those, what those numbers were in a overall standpoint would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is important at times to take a step back, and we have made investments in, frankly, generational improvements in our community. I think our library, our wharf, community center, hopefully the UA playground. These were all things that the city did back when we were doing a lot of stuff in the 80s, and we haven't done that in a long time. It's been almost 40 years. So we have put, by my math, I think it's around $6.5 million of general fund into those really important projects. We've also leveraged, I think it's between $27 and $28 million of other money into our community with that $6.5 million. So, I think that's cause for celebration. We've been able to do things that in 40 years the city hasn't been able to do, and really get some community improvements. You are right, though, about the pavement management, PMI. I think it is $2 million a year is what we need to keep our head above water. And so there's going to be challenges ahead. We're looking at CDBG options. We're going to be talking more this winter about Bay Avenue corridor, whether that's an opportunity to help fund that, try to find other ways to leverage dollars into those pavement projects. But these things always come in waves, and I think you're exactly right, Councilmember Jensen. We've been making really great investments in our community, and the challenge is going to be moving forward is going to be how do we take care of some of the other stuff? How do we take care of the bridge is a problem? Are we going to get the funding from the federal government to protect Cliff Drive? And how do we get the Bay Avenue corridor project done? But, we have a really good team, and I'm confident that this council and this team, we're going to be able to get there. So,
could you just elaborate a little bit on the relationship, just to remind, especially me as being new on council, about the relationship that we have made with the County Park Friends? Was those numbers ballpark correctly that the city has provided about funding about $450? They've raised now about $1 million, and that we're to commit the, let's say, verbal agreement or agreement that we have made to them, and a lot of community members worked on helping them reach their goal of the $1 million, and that really there's kind of a commitment of the previous council and coming to this next council in identifying that there's about another $450,000 for the accessible playground.
Yeah, those numbers are about correct. As background, the council put in two budget allocations, I think, over 2 fiscal years, and I think it's about $475 in total general fund into the UA playground. The fundraising targets have been exceeded. I think it's close to $1 million that they're going to be netting to the city, which is great. The challenge that we have is that the design for that project, the overall cost, we haven't bid it yet, but it is estimated at more than the combination of those two amounts. I have a plan using restricted funding. We need to sort of fully develop it, but I'm relatively optimistic we are going to be able to deliver on the project that we've been shown without having to put more general fund in. But don't hold me to it. I got a plan. I'll present it when we think it's actually really real.
Those are all my comments. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, the great project. I'm glad we're moving forward because it's costing us more money as we're sitting here. So we need to get started. Also grateful for the quarterly updates. That'll be beneficial for us. And I would like to speak a little bit about the generator. We need to be ready for whatever may happen in our community. I think we should look at everything we can do to update the generator as soon as possible. That's all I have.
With that, I move to approve the construction contract for the Capitola Community Center renovation project in the amount of $4,007,000. Oh my God, do I have to say all of these words? $4,726,000, including selected additive alternatives. Authorize the Public Works Department to issue a notice to proceed upon final contract execution. Amendment 3 to the professional services agreement with Boone Lowe Radliff Architects for design consultant services for the project in the amount of $18,000 for a total contract amount of $579,000, and adopt a resolution adopting the NEPA and CEQA determination and amending the 24-25 budget.
I can second that.
Here in the first and second, can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Jensen?
Aye.
Councilmember Morgan?
Aye.
Councilmember Orbach?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Peterson?
Aye.
And Mayor Clark?
Aye. Passes unanimously.
Before we move on, can I ask council a question? Council, can I make a motion to revisit the appointment of someone on the Commission on the Environment on an agenda item that has already been acted upon?
Just one second.
I believe the matter in question was an individual appointment and it wasn't motioned by the full council. So the full council didn't vote on those appointments. My apologies.
That brings us to item E, City Council representation on regional boards and city advisory bodies.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. To close us out tonight, we're going to talk some more about committees, commissions, and regional boards. So as you are already aware, the City Council sits as Capitola's representation on several multi-jurisdictional and county boards and commissions. With the departure of former Mayor Brooks, we have a couple of vacancies that need to be filled, and then there's also a vacancy on the FAC that needs to be filled, and we had one request from one of our community boards to revisit the appointment process, so we've included it here for your review tonight. So we're going to start off with the county and multi-jurisdictional boards. The City of Capitola is represented on various bodies by members of the City Council, and the boards and committees are established by other codes or bylaws. We're going to start by going through the different boards that Mayor Brooks formerly sat on. At this time, before making any decisions, I would ask if the council would like to go to public comment before we start this process.
Yes, thank you. Anyone wishing to make public comment? Seeing none, bring it back to council questions. Seeing none, back to the presentation.
Great. We can go ahead and start with the Advisory Council of the Area Agency on Aging. This is a group that meets regularly. The next meeting takes place on February 12th, 2025 at 10 a.m. Is there any desire from the City Council to appoint a representative?
Are you able to pull up all the things so we can look at what we already signed up for? And
Sure, I can do that. Hold on one second. Let me switch the screen.
And I would just, a question to, are we open to, if there's something, Councilmember Morgan, you're interested in, please bring it up, because you weren't here when we went through them. So if there's something that near and dear to your heart, please, especially one of them on, let me know when, so we can work that out.
So again, just to start, we'll go ahead with it's also the first one alphabetically, so it's the top of the list, but the Advisory Council of the Area Agency on Aging. This meets typically on the second Wednesday of each month in Aptos.
I'll do it.
Thank you. The next group that currently has a vacancy, also the second one alphabetically, is the Association of Monterey Bay Area Governments, also known as AMBAG. It meets on the second Wednesday of each month in Monterey, and the current representatives we have are Yvette Brooks, and Councilmember Orbach was the alternate, and so we do need to update this due to the resignation of former Mayor Brooks.
Do you want it and I'll take the alternate? I mean, it's all these times, I'll admit, are very hard for me at this point. Let's see.
If it helps, travel outside the county is eligible for reimbursement.
Oh, I really want to get into that.
If there's an upside going to Monterey, at least you can submit miles.
The beautiful scenic drive.
I can't commit 100% to that one, unfortunately.
We put that one on hold and come back to it.
Sure, we can circle back. Okay, so the next one that currently requires a change would be the Community Action Board. Doesn't require a change, but we did have a request to appoint a member of the public to this body. So the Community Action Board, back in December, we appointed Vice Mayor Peterson to serve as Capitola's representative, and the City Council received a request from CAB to allow Kristen Brown to continue serving on this group as a representative of the city. And so it's up to the council to decide whether or not they'd like to continue to allow her to serve.
I would like to nominate Kristen Brown for that role.
I second that.
Great. And then the next group that we are going to talk about is the Children's Network. Trying to...
I'd like to volunteer for that.
Oh, okay, great. That makes it easy.
Where is that? Oh, I see.
Right there. And those were the only groups actually that required any changes because of the vacancy from former Mayor Brooks. So the only one that leaves us with a vacancy on is AMBAG.
I can announce that the City Selection Committee did meet, and Mayor Clark nominated Jerry Jensen to be on the Air Board, and the City Selection Committee accepted that recommendation. So you're honorary member of the Air Board now, and Joe is now also a member of LAFCO on behalf of the city. So we did have the City Selection Committee, and the nominations were ultimately adopted by the City Selection.
We're struggling with it, the AMBAG.
We can continue it and come back, bring it on the agenda next meeting. You guys everyone can look at their calendar and take a look at the schedule and see if there's a potential. There's also the possibility that if somebody could free something else up, maybe there could be a swap in a position, but we don't have to. It's 9:00 now. We don't have to do this tonight.
Yeah, I'd say let's continue that one to next meeting.
And Councilmember Morgan, if there's something that I'm on quite a number of them, if there's one of those that if it's a time conflict, I also work 12-hour day during the day, but there's opportunities to move schedules around, I think, for all of us. So, but there's something that's more fitting for your schedule, I'm open for that, and I'm quite sure other council members are too.
I unfortunately am only a part-time worker, but I work Wednesdays, so that's an issue for me also.
So the only other, so I would ask for a motion and a vote to confirm the appointments. Certain of these groups require, or they request that the council make a motion and a vote. So currently what I have listed is Councilmember Jensen serving as Capitol's representative for the Advisory Council of the Area Agency on Aging, Kristen Brown as a resident representing Capitola to the Community Action Board, Councilmember Orbach representing Capitola to the Children's Network, and that's all I have for your consideration this evening at this point.
I can move those appointments.
I'll second.
Thank you.
A first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then before we move on, the only other item that still requires council action is the City of Capitola's Finance Advisory Committee. This group has 2 city council seats on it, the mayor and the vice mayor. If the mayor and vice mayor do not wish to serve, then another council member can serve in their stead. We had former Mayor Brooks and then current Vice Mayor Peterson serving. With the departure of former Mayor Brooks, that leaves 1 vacant city council seat. And so I request direction from the council who would like to take the spot, if the mayor would like to take it or somebody else.
I'm looking at it, I just don't see it on my paperwork here. When do they meet?
The next meeting of the FAC is going to be on February 18th at 6 p.m.
Do they meet monthly or twice a week? Sorry, twice a month?
It does depend. I don't believe they meet monthly, but during budget season, they have additional meetings to review the budget. And I believe our finance director at the back of the room could speak more to their regular meeting schedule.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The FAC meets every other month, so 6 meetings a year. Generally, we'll have one special meeting during budget season. And as the clerk said, next meeting's in February. Tuesdays, third Tuesday, every other month.
Great. I could put myself down for that.
Great. So, and then Vice Mayor Peterson, I'm guessing you'd like to stay on.
Yes, that's right.
Great. So it'll be Mayor and Vice Mayor serving to represent the city. And then if I could have a motion and a vote for that one as well.
Do you need to open public comment on this item?
Oh, we can. I mean, public comment we took earlier, but sure, we could take it again.
Okay, any public comment? Seeing none?
I move to appoint all of those in.
I think the motion could be to appoint pursuant to the clerk's listing out the appointments.
I got it.
That.
Sorry.
That you motioned?
Yeah, I made a motion to appoint those individuals to those advisory boards.
I can second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. It was an extraordinary city council meeting. But thank everybody. Be safe. Take care of one another. Meeting adjourned.